Hi guys, today we're going to be practicing the 5 different shading techniques: hatching, cross contour, scumbling, and stippling to get some practice in, but also to pick our favorite. You will need a pen, your sketchbook, and a little bit of patience. Alright, so we're first going to start by just drawing 5 equal-ish sized circles that we are going to practice our shading in. So take a second and draw those down. They do not have to be perfect. They don't have to be identical, just about the same size. And next we're just going to go through these one at a time, practicing all the different shading techniques. So the first one we're going to do is hatching, and do label this in your sketchbook. And that is spelled H-A-T-C-H-I-N-G. Hatching is just straight lines all going in the same direction, and as there's more layers of that, the darker it is, and where there's less layers, the lighter it is. And you can go straight up and down, or you can go on this way, but the important thing is that your hatch marks are all in the same direction. So, for instance, if I'm going in this direction, I start my first layer, they're all the same space away from each other, they're also the same size. And I'm pretending that there's light right here. And then the shadows here. And as the light gets further away, the darker it's going to be on this side. And then my next hatch mark goes like this, in between. And it's just slightly shorter, and down here they start to look like they're closer together. Hatching is not this. That looks like fur. What we are looking for are controlled marks. And you gotta just take your time. When I draw these, I always just kind of say that it's like a forest full of trees. So we have like really tall trees, and then we have the younger trees, and then the slightly younger trees, and then like the baby trees. And the further away we get from the sun, the shorter the trees are, and the darker it gets. So that's an example of hatching. So practice hatching. Next we have cross hatching, which is spelled C-R-O-S-S-hatching, H-A-T-C-H-I-N-G. Now this one, I do the tree analogy again. So we still have the sun on this side, and so it's going to be dark on this side, light on this side, and it starts the same as hatching. What makes cross hatching different is instead of all the hatch marks going in the same direction, they tend to cross over each other. And usually how it goes is they go like this direction, and then this direction, and then this direction, and then sometimes even this direction. What cross hatching is not is, again, it has to be controlled. This is controlled shading. So I have my first layer of trees going up like so, but then something happens. I don't know what the heck's going on, and they all fall over. So then we have these trees that are falling to the left, like so, and it makes it a little darker for this layer. And they also fall to the right. So we're getting darker yet. And some of them are just piling up here. We got maybe like halfway up. And then new trees start to grow. And as you can see, the further away we get from the light, and the more layers of fallen and growing trees we have, the darker it gets. And then maybe those trees fall down. And then those trees fall down. And that is how you cross hatch. All right, next I'm going to do cross contour. Cross contour is a lot like hatching, except for it wraps around the contours of whatever it is you are trying to shade. So like in this instance, we're going around a sphere, or a lot of artists will use them when they're like drawing like ceramics or the human body because we have curves. So instead of straight lines like this, which tend to look a bit flat, we're going to use curved lines. So I curve around the contours of this sphere. And yes, the light is still on this side. And it's very controlled. We're trying to curve about the same amount. They kind of look like longitudinal lines. So that's my first layer. And then we have little curved trees growing up in between them. And then even more. Try to have some control over your line making. And try not to cross over any other cross contour lines. But it's okay if it happens once in a while. It happens. And then see how I'm just really taking my time. This is not something you can rush. This is not one of the shading techniques that goes fast. Anyway, the further down I go, the more layers I make, the darker it gets. Cross contour, oh boy, contour, C-O-N-T-O-U-R. That'll show me for trying to write while talking. So anyway, cross contour is not this. That's just sloppy eyelashes, kids. Make sure you are taking your time, and it's just basically hatching, but curved. And it just makes things look more 3D. All right. All right, so next we're going to do my personal favorite, which is scumbling. Scumbling is a little bit more freeform and very individual to the artist. So there are several different ways to do it. Like you could do like a lot of just the same letter. I like to do like C's. The smaller they are, though, the better they look. Or some artists like to do S's. So these are the two C's or S's that I recommend if you know yourself and you know that you're just going to like go a little crazy, because the other option is to do some like a thread. Okay? So you're drawing this thread, and the more layers of that thread you have, the darker it is, and the less layers of that thread you have, the lighter it is. But it is not this. That is not scumbling. That there is scribbling. Don't do that. Nope. All right, so scumbling, S-C-U-M-B-L-I-N-G, and the light's over on this side, and so I'm just going to start with my thread, and I'm going to have it lapping over each other the same amount to make my first layer. And then my second layer, which is about halfway up, I do some more little scumbles. And then as I get further away, I do more and more little loops. And more little loops. But if you don't feel comfortable doing the thread, just do S's or C's. And the more layers of those you do, the darker it'll get. And the less layers you do, the lighter it'll get. So that's what scumbling looks like. It's very organic, very free. It's really fun to do. And then finally, we have the best one. It's the best in that it looks the best, but it takes forever. So if you are wanting to do this one, just know it's going to take a while. You might finish your drawing sometime this year, but it's going to take a while. So this one is called stippling. And stippling is small dots that make the shading. And I kind of think of it as pixels. The closer together the dots are, the darker it is. Or you can even think of them as little ants or people, but you're looking at them from far, far above the clouds. Where there's a lot of them, it's dark. Where there's less of them, it's light. Stippling is not, however, this. That's just called stabbing your paper, kids. And stippling is not, little circles. That's actually just like a form of scumbling, honestly. And then I have seen some artists who like to do stippling like this, like draw little dots like this, which you can do, and it does make your dots slightly bigger, but oh boy, is your shoulder gonna hurt. So totally up to you how you want to do it. But what I do is I just take my pen and I just tap. And this is especially important if you're using a pen, because if you're using a pencil, it's actually really difficult to stipple, and that's why we're using pen today. Because when you're using a pencil, it doesn't necessarily use the same amount of pressure every time, and you might actually have to take your pencil and twist it a little bit. But it's just little tap, 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 and this will take a while. So just do your best to get a nice little value scale from dark to light. And just know that it's going to take time. So that's stippling. So those are the 5 different shading techniques: hatching, cross contours, scumbling, and stippling. Practice them and try and pick your favorite.